In this example, we're starting with the same compartment as the previous example. It's 200 acres of 15-year-old slash pine plantation. But in this case, our objective is to maximize revenue. Okay, same stand, but different objective. So we're probably going to make different prescriptions since our objectives are different. So, okay, I want to maximize revenue. So the scenarios I want to look at are clear cut at approximately age 20. It's a 15-year-old stand, so I'm going to go ahead and let it grow another 5 years and then clear cut it, do intensive site preparation, and plant slash pine. Okay, so that's one scenario. The other scenario, I want to say, okay, I'll clear cut the existing stand at age 20, do intensive site preparation, but then plant loblolly pine. This is basically making a species choice. If I'm interested in revenue, is it better, more economically efficient to plant slash or to plant lob? We're going to compare these over the same period of time, so we can use net present value to compare those two scenarios. So jumping right to the cash flow analysis, knowing that I basically used the growth and yield model to simulate two harvests. The first harvest was the harvest of the existing stand at age 20. Okay, so I input my site index and basal area for the existing slash pine plantation, and I use the slash pine growth and yield model to tell me what the different product class yield would be at age 20. Okay, so it told me that if I clear cut that stand in 5 years, it will yield 14 tons per acre of pulpwood, 52 tons per acre of chip and saw, and 22 tons per acre of saw timber. And my associated revenues would be $1,412 per acre. And then this is our adjusted revenue. Okay. After that harvest in that same year, after that clear cut, I'm going to bed the site, do broadcast herbicide, and plant slash pine seedlings. So this is the sum of all of those costs from the cost sheet. And then this is the adjusted cost. And then I'm going to go ahead and fertilize at age 8. And this is the cost to fertilize at age 8. And then I'll just clear cut that planted slash pine when it is 20 years old, which is 25 years in our scenario. So this is the growth and yield model run again, but in this case run from year 0 at planting through age 20. And this is our yield for that scenario. 36 tons of pulpwood, 44 tons of chip and saw. These are the revenues associated with that, and this is the adjusted revenues. So sum of time-adjusted revenues, sum of time-adjusted costs. We subtract costs from revenues and get this net present value of $1,189 per acre, or $237,000 for the 200-acre tract. So that's the net present value of that scenario. Okay, here, this is all exactly the same as the previous scenario in terms of yield. When we clear cut the existing stand in another 5 years, we do the same bedding, herbicide, and planting treatment. So those costs are the same. And then we fertilize again at age 8, and that's the same cost. So the only difference here is that this is a loblolly scenario. So for this subsequent rotation, we've planted loblolly, so we run the loblolly growth and yield model. And it tells us what the harvest revenues or harvest yield will be. We calculate the revenue for those harvest yields and adjust time adjusted, sum those revenues, subtract the time adjusted costs, and our net present value per acre is $1,240 dollars per acre, $248,000 total for the tract. But I'm not completely satisfied with that outcome, because I know that loblolly pine is pretty responsive to intensive management. So I say, okay, since I'm planting loblolly pine, I'm going to add some treatments that should enhance the growth of loblolly pine. So in addition to that bedding and herbicide at establishment, I'm going to come in the year after planting and do an additional herbicide treatment. I have that age 8 fertilization, but then I'm going to fertilize again at age 15, because again, loblolly tends to be more responsive to intensive management. Okay, those are additional costs, but as you see, what the growth and yield model tells us, that when we input that additional fertilization and additional weed control into the growth and yield model, it shows that yield has increased. If you compare this to the previous yield, we're producing more wood at 20 years than in the less intensive scenario. So this is the revenue associated with that clear-cut harvest at age 20. These are the expenses. See, the expenses are more than the previous scenario, but the net present value is greater. Okay, so what we end up with then are 3 scenarios. You know, I said, okay, here's our slash and lob scenarios. That lob has a higher net present value than the slash by quite a bit, you know, by $11,000. My intensive management lob also has a higher net present value than the less intensive lob option, but it's only by about $5,000 across the entire 200-acre tract. So what, that's $2.50 an acre, is that right? Yeah, so it's, no, $25 an acre. So it's $25 an acre more. So the question then we have to ask ourselves, is this additional increment in net present value worth, for instance, the effort of managing the contractors for those additional treatments, any risks associated with those, and so on. And that would need to be a call that you make, because $5,000 difference in net present value for 200 acres is not much. So you would have to make that call and justify it.